right? They're going to be people that are prevalent, seen, and have to be seen. And it's not because they want any sort of celebrity. In fact, it's the burden of knowing. It's the burden of information. And even more so, when you begin to learn anything, when you begin to realize how this works, that if you're looking at and you try to remove yourself, a language specialist, all you want to do is go through your military service, go out to the Monterey Institute of International Studies where Aquino and a lot of other people are associated, right? Michael Aquino, but let's stay on track here. And you're looking at language models. Well, you can't remove yourself from gematria. You can't remove yourself. And at the higher tier, that's exactly what, like when you get into the higher echelon, they're going to be talking to you about sacred geometry, number systems, math, stuff that the entry level, average everyday plebeian or somebody who just does really well, they're testing you for those propensities, okay? That's what IQ testing is doing also. In fact, IQ testing is going, look, we're looking for this, but we're actually looking for the dumb shits who don't know how to think this way at all. We're looking for the soldiers who will go to war for the queen, right? Who will go through insurmountable stress and disorder just to be captain, my captain. You know, that this whole fucking hierarchy, right? So this does hail back into JJ Vance, Heidi Love. Great show last night. And leading back into the Society of the Cincinnati. Because there you see the names and how through lineage, why is lineage important? And so you'd have to go back to the codified system. It's very simple. Like you're going back into the number system that's in your genetics. It's in your DNA, right? And of course, all this superficial, superfluous genetic material that could be harkened back to the Human Genome Project, you know, when you're talking about Watson and Crick, and then that leads back to Linus Pauling and peptides, and all that even just leads back to Alan Turing and Konrad Zuse, and then invariably, if you really look at the whole abstract, it leads you toward Jacobo Greenberg, and you're back at square one, looking at fucking witches, running away from witches. My son doesn't want to talk about it because it's like, that's like Cliff High wouldn't want to talk about it. It's like, you live with a witch. Heidi's a witch. Fucking say it. You're a warlock. If you do the things that you're doing, think the way that you are, have what you have with your nice little beach house and your, you know, but that's not all that's happening with Cliff. Like he's literally, maybe we all are doing this Faustian deal where he has to report the news, the north, east, west, and south, right? Everything that's happening. And when you're talking about the news, you're talking about the energetics, and that's what we're discussing here, is energetics and how they move. Like when people kind of look at me and they're like, oh, you're crazy. Well, you're a young, immature idiot, and you're going to live in a world, a dystopic world that I'm talking about. And it's going to come on you really harshly. So the faster you fucking digest it and realize it, the less pronounced it's going to be to where you don't have a fucking nervous breakdown. Because when you finally realize what's going on and how far behind you are, and I'm telling you, I've talked about this for years, like you can actually look at Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and it will fucking teach you. And I'm not touting it. I've had to sell that shit so many times. I say, fuck cryptocurrency. It's just a modern iteration and a ripoff of mutualism, Pierre Proudhon, the tally stick, the electronic tally stick. It is bullshit, okay? But it sure is making Cliff High feel comfortable these days. There's something that I really refute and hate about Cliff High, but then there's also the burden of information where you look at the guy and you go, everyone who understands things from an ontological perspective truly has to feel sorry for the next. Because they're carrying, nobody would want to carry your burden. And then when you look at them, you're like, oh, holy shit, you're carrying a huge burden. Right? So what's the difference between a burden and a cross? right? What's the difference between the cross and an X? Have you ever thought about it? Do you think this is abstract? It's not. It's the very thing that you're supposed to be thinking about. When you're in your mathematics classes, that's what you're thinking about. You go into this, the Essenes, but it's like, it was even called like a more Essenian type mathematical perspective, but it's diagonal mathematics. What is diagonal mathematics? Well, the inference is that you have a cross and you put that cross to its side and now you have an X, and you can't remove the X and the cross from the square or the compass in the square. And it's got, like, you kind of start putting it all together. You're like, it's sacred geometry. It's not abstract. The reason that it seems abstract is you're going, what do I do with this? Those of us who put it into play and gone, well, this is how the sacred geometrical construct works. This is how it reacts and interacts with me. I'm going to use my imagination and spin these spheres. And it's like, oh, you're a practitioner, you're doing witchcraft. And it's like, or you're doing, you're a warlock or you're a druid. And it's like, what's happening is with the Freemasons, the reason that they're inducted and the betrayal that they have is when they start to use self-magic or self-craft. They're saying, we got you covered. We'll buy, you want a Corvette? We'll buy you a Corvette, a brand new Corvette. What type do you want? And what are the features you want? Yeah, and they'll get you all excited over it. And then all you got to do is kind of like the mafia or the mob. You just got to show up at a certain time and leave a suitcase somewhere. And you don't realize that, so it becomes this abstract thing where suddenly you're across the street from some dude doing some weird ritual as he's driving his fucking Tesla up that's got a car bomb in it. Or, you know, you're noticing over your shoulder that some guy that you don't even know that happened to be Timothy McVeigh is checking out a book and reading Invictus and raising his right hand up, and nobody noticed those rituals that were being done, right? Because it seems abstract and it seems like I'm going off on a tangent here, but the ritualization or the rejection of the cornerstone, that's you, that's who you are. If you begin to see yourself and you really begin to see not just the artifices of the self. And so it's so weird, but it's not weird, that when I was listening to Cliff High, it's like I just felt this need on the way to the store to do these 3 or 4 videos that I'm uploading, downloading. And he's talking about the same fucking thing, and it was just put up 2 hours ago, and I don't even know if he put it up on Substack because I don't get. I turned off the reminders from Substack because that was just it's annoying me. I'm hooked in with like all these. I don't know. I'm just not a real big fan of Substack, but I know that Cliff High uses Substack primarily, so I'll go on there and as well, like Jason Reza Giorgiani, I would be posting and listening to every one of his things, but he charges, and he has to charge. But it's when people think that their information is at a premium, and even more so that it is their information, right? And Cliff High, he's making money on all these levels from supplements, like. If you're going to get into a sellout, what do you call a sellout? You call somebody who has to live in opulence and luxury within the illusion of the matrix, where they got to eat that steak, right? Oh, this steak tastes good. You know, red pill or blue pill, right? And the red pill and blue pill was an inference. It was something that was added later. And the story for the matrix was heavily modified because it was just this breakout from one sense or area of the matrix into the same exact thing. So you get into the idea that we are in this perpetuation generation machine. It is not infinity. It's not even Google. It's not anything that it even infers anything infinite on any sort of scalable level. What it is a replication of the same thing over and over again. And that's exactly what the square and the number, like the hash graph, the hashtag. Look, you'd say, oh, there's only so many symbols and we're not going to get esoteric or arcane with the fact that hashtags and hash graphs and so forth are being used. It's just a symbol. When you get into the symbol and you see that it's a replication, a duplication, it means number. It means number system. It's a pound. It means pound, right? And that it infers the duplicity of a square. You get into the artifices and the facts, and then you have four. And it's kind of like telling you, like, what are you going to do with the fragments of these four units or these duplicate measures? It is, in fact, a mimetic chain, a mimetic code. Because when you get into time and distance, like, look, this seems abstract as well, but when you get into integer, how do I reduce a number or a number subset to where I have a mimetic sequence, right? So it gets into conditional state or conditional status, is that if I get really deep with this, just the very distance between these two objects and even me as an observer and my size, if I can build that in, then it's an exclusive language to someone like me. Why is it an exclusive language with somebody like me? Because I recognized it, because I'm interplaying with it, because suddenly the knowledge is available to me and I don't necessarily have to have any traditional or non-traditional education available to me to understand this. And so it does get into the areas of autism. It gets into the areas, I haven't discussed this guy in a while because I can't stand him and I think he's a charlatan. In fact, I'm not even going to mention his name. What I'm going to say is Steve Mira and Barry Fitzgerald heavily interplay with this, okay? But I don't even necessarily think they're anything. I think they are charlatans as well. Look, people who are selling books and try to create an exclusivity, who are not integrating in the concepts and ideas, are sellouts. Alex Jones is a complete and total sellout. He's not telling you anything. He acts like he's like this devout, holy person who is privy to knowledge and information that no one else is. But that's exactly what fucking Nostradamus and John Dee and any other weirdos will say to you as well. It's that they have this exclusivity, and there's something that's exclusively theirs and exclusive to themselves. And that's what the entity wants you to think. It wants you to take on temerity. It wants you to take on hubris. And the truth is that and then you get into YouTube channels that seemingly are very benevolent. And you're like, wow, I see why this is so popular. You know, this guy's got 50,000 subscribers. This person has 100,000 subscribers. And all of a sudden, when you do the maths and you begin to realize, well, this person's making $7,000 a month. And of course, they're churning this out. And of course, they're talking about these themes. So this gets into the area that I wanted to discuss very briefly. And I'll leave you with this. And that is that you get into, we're not going to discuss chirality. We're not going to discuss mimetics in the traditional way that we have in the past. What we're talking about is a sort of a chimera. We're talking about a chameleon mimicking behaviors as if there's an echo. Like I talked about that a little earlier on another video, where you're in Plato's cave and certain people that are saying, I exist and I'm hearing my own echo, and this echo is refracting back. They don't see the fact that they're actually being employed and used as an artifice or an automata or an artificial structure that would behave and do certain things when under the supposition of the guise of a behavior module or information that's available. Okay, so in other words, a lot of these people who act like they're coming out with unique information and you're comfortable with, and they're talking about love and light, they're doing that as an induction, and they are only putting their foot in the water, just a tip, right? And so you're seeing it, but that identifies you as a certain, through a certain jurisdictional credence or power that doesn't make you unique at all. Like if you're looking at, like when you were growing up and they said, oh, you're in the 90 something percentile of your height. Oh, your child's in the 90 percentile for push-ups. Oh, your child is, and then it goes on and on. 90th percentile for this test, that test. I've got a phone call, but I'm going to get going. But what it is however much you can handle without the feeling of bending your mind and being put in an uncomfortable situation where the only thing that gives you comfort is that you've been bought off. That's what I really want you to know, is the fact that the only reason you have any sort of opulence is because you haven't, and you know this is true, you haven't pushed the notion to actually sacrifice the bullshit idea of an opulent situation. This is my food, this is my place, this is my car, this is my job. And then as soon as you begin to push back against it, you get a call from your boss out of the blue and you're going, that wasn't random. That was obviously, right? And then you begin to interplay with it. And then are you going to be in the 90th percentile where you're just average everyday people? Or are you going to actually earn a soul? So what I'm telling you is the fact that you are weighed against other people. Yes, this is true. And this is why it's so important to talk about this. The information is out there. The push is here. You're going to look back and you're going to go, that was a falsified dead world. And now I'm stuck in this limited place where I have only proven myself in the system as to be no better than this person right next to me. I know that I'm more aware. I know that I'm a higher quality human being than this person. It comes down to information, energy exchange, getting beyond the transactional aspect to it, and to be able to employ and put into full implementation and use the fact that now you've come into this information. You may be required to walk down the street and do certain things that are so absurd. What was it? That wasn't the 3-body problem. What the fuck? Everything, everywhere, all at once, right? I watched that. It was absurd. But at the same time, I realized this makes a lot of sense on another level. It's like you have these people going down the street looking like they're schizophrenic, but the only thing that authenticates them and makes them seem like they are unique at all, right, is through their deeds or through their behaviorism, that they are not afraid to be rejected by the world around them, right? And I want you to think about that because it's very, very important.